And when they were come into the house, they saw the young child with Mary his mother, and fell down and worshipped him. And when they had opened their treasures, they presented unto him gifts, gold, and frankincense, and myrrh. The wise men, or Magi as they are usually called, are a group of noticeable characters who only appear once in the Gospels, namely during the Gospel of Matthew, and are famous for not only delivering the famous presents that symbolize Jesus' destiny, but also saved him from dying by refusing to give away his location when a tyrant sought to kill him. Though the number of kings or wise men are not explicitly stated, many believe that only 3 of them visited Jesus that night, since we have the famous gifts of gold, frankincense, and myrrh to go by the amount of people who were there. Besides, it would be easier to believe that at least 3 special people visited Jesus rather than, say, 10 to 15 people, especially since the manger was most likely very cramped by the time Jesus was born. As for who these Magi were, it's not made clear where exactly they came from, as all we know is that they came from the eastern part of the world. But considering how the story mainly took place in Israel and Jesus was born in Bethlehem, the Magi could have come from Turkey, Iran, Persia, Iraq, Saudi Arabia, or even Yemen, with the last one being the most likely since their origins involve a theory that they were the kings of Yemen who were prophesied to visit Jesus, at least according to Isaiah 60 and Psalm 72, which again allows the Old Testament to link to the New Testament. Another thing about the wise men is that while they don't have names in the Bible, many have come to believe that their names are Caspar, Melchior, and Balthazar, due to the belief that they were of Persian descent, especially if you go by the theory that they may or may not have known Daniel, the man who would gain Nebuchadnezzar's favor and a higher rank over the Magupati, who were priests that studied astrology and astronomy. That's where the name of the Magi actually came from, as it was a Greek translation of Magupati, who were special priests or astronomers and astrologers, at least around the time of the Persians or even the Babylonians. When it comes to the names of the Magi and where they actually came from, they are also believed to have come from different kingdoms, with their roles of bringing gifts being theorized by many. The one called Caspar is often depicted as being the one who brought frankincense to Jesus, and is theorized to be the king of Sheba, thus giving him an indirect relation to the queen of Sheba from Solomon's time. As for frankincense itself, it is a symbol of how Jesus is the Son of God, as well as being the King of Kings, as they would describe him, since frankincense was explicitly used by priests to serve as offerings to God in temples. The one called Melchior is often depicted as being the one who brought gold to Jesus, and is theorized to be the king of Arabia, considering how valuable gold is even into the modern day, and was something only a king could own. Of course, this would be very fitting and meaningful for someone like Jesus, even if he was too young to use it at the time. The one called Balthazar is often depicted as being the one who brought myrrh, and is theorized to be the king of Tarsus or Macedonia, and is also given an indirect connection to Egypt because of it. Interestingly enough, he's sometimes portrayed as being darker skinned compared to the other 2, though they are also sometimes portrayed as having dark skin, albeit not nearly as dark as his. As for why he brought myrrh of all things, as myrrh was more often used for perfume or even medicine for wounds, and sometimes used to treat corpses, there is a more bittersweet and tragic meaning behind it. Given what happens to Jesus in the future, namely his famous crucifixion, perhaps Balthazar saw what was going to happen and was, in a sense, trying to warn Mary and Joseph about it in his own way, or he was simply respecting Jesus' destiny, but tried to be subtle about it. Of course, this wouldn't be the last time Jesus was given perfume or an item that was often used for perfumes, given how later in his life he would have his feet washed with perfume from a woman using her hair. Fun fact, in Italy, there is a figure who is often associated with the Magi, known as Befana, who was an old woman and a widow who sadly outlived her husband and son, according to the stories. In most versions, she is visited by the Magi, who sought shelter for a bit, and tell her about their journey to see Jesus. Of course, at the time, she didn't take them seriously and declined their invitation to come see him, but the moment they left, she came to regret and followed after them so she could see the baby too. Sadly, in most versions, she never does find the Magi or Jesus, and is often depicted as a Santa Claus-like figure who spends her remaining days giving gifts to good children on January 5th, Though there is one version where she did see Jesus and cut up to the Magi, but only because she deluded herself into believing that the baby was her son due to her having outlived her child and suffering from grief. But the moment she did see him, she finally found peace and was able to move on from her son's death, thus accepting that he was gone. Whether the Magi were actually kings or not is still up for debate, but they still serve a special role on Christmas, especially given how they saved his life by refusing to tell the infamous Herod where he was so he could kill him. While we never see them again, we can only assume that they celebrated Jesus' growing legacy until the day they died. Either way, they, along with the shepherds and Mary, serve as important figures for Christmas, but none as important as Jesus, obviously. Either way, Merry Christmas.